Teen MOCKS Elon Musk's electric cars. Test drive results leave him speechless. The sound of metal hitting concrete echoed through Martinez Auto Repair as Mike dropped his wrench for the third time that morning. His dad's voice carried from under the '67 Mustang they were working on. "You planning on fixing this car or just making music with my tools?" Joe Martinez rolled out from beneath the car, his weathered face streaked with grease. "What's got you so distracted today?" Mike picked up his phone from the workbench, grinning. "Just hit 2 million followers, Dad." 2 million? That's like twice the population of people who should be working instead of watching some kid talk about cars. Joe cut in, but there was a hint of pride in his voice. He'd never understood this social media thing. But his son's passion for cars was undeniable, even if it came out differently than his own. "Check this out," Mike said, pulling up his latest video. Already at 500,000 views since last night. The video showed Mike walking around a Tesla Model 3 in a parking lot, his signature smirk on display. "Look at these panel gaps, folks." His voice dripped with sarcasm. "For just 60 grand, you too can own a car that looks like it was assembled by blindfolded monkeys." Joe wiped his hands on a shop rag and squinted at the tiny screen. "You sure it's smart, poking fun at people's cars like that?" "Dad, that's the whole point. People love it when I call out overpriced junk. Besides," Mike gestured around the garage, "this is real car culture right here. The smell of gasoline, the sound of a V8, the feeling when you finally get an engine purring just right. Those Tesla guys think they're saving the world by driving glorified iPads." The bell above the shop door chimed, and both men turned to see Carlos, Mike's best friend since middle school, walking in with his usual early morning energy and 2 cups of coffee from the corner shop. "Yo, future YouTube star," Carlos called out, handing one coffee to Mike. "Or should I say TikTok star? Man, that Tesla video is blowing up. The comments are insane." Joe shook his head and slid back under the Mustang, muttering something about social media being the death of real work. "Check out what this Tesla fanboy wrote," Carlos said, scrolling through his phone. "You're just jealous because you'll never afford one. Ha! Show them what you're working on." Mike grabbed his phone and moved to the cherry red 1969 Camaro in the corner. His pride and joy. He'd bought it as a wreck with 3 years of saved up money from working at the shop, and he and his dad had been restoring it piece by piece. "You think I'm jealous of your plastic toy cars?" Mike spoke to his phone camera, running his hand along the Camaro's curved hood. "This right here is American muscle. Real steel, real power, real history. No autopilot, no touchscreen gimmicks, just pure driving experience. But hey, enjoy your zero-emissions car that runs on electricity from coal plants." Carlos laughed from behind the camera. "Man, they're gonna be so mad. Do the thing about the charging stations." Before Mike could continue, his dad's voice interrupted. "If you two social media experts are done, I could use some help with this transmission. Unless you want to explain to Mrs. Johnson why her car isn't ready by tomorrow." Mike lowered his phone. "Coming, Dad. Just let me post this real quick." "You know what your problem is?" Joe said as Mike knelt beside the Mustang. "You spend so much time talking about what you hate, you forget to focus on what you love. Your grandfather built this shop focusing on the love of cars, all cars." "But Dad, these aren't real cars. They're computers on wheels. Remember Tommy's Tesla last month? We couldn't even work on it because everything's locked behind their software." "How is that right?" Joe slid a drain pan under the transmission. "Times change, son. When I started, carburetors were king. Now everything's fuel injection. You adapt or you get left behind." "That's different," Mike protested, reaching for a socket wrench. "At least you can still work on those cars. These EVs, they're trying to kill shops like ours. They want everyone dependent on their corporate service centers." The morning proceeded with their usual routine, working on cars, bantering with customers, and Mike sneaking moments to check his phone. By lunch, his Tesla video had crossed 1 million views. During their break, Mike and Carlos sat on the worn couch in the shop's waiting area, scrolling through comments. "This kid doesn't know what he's talking about," Carlos read in a mocking voice. "My Model S would smoke his precious Camaro. Dude, you should challenge them to a race." Mike took a bite of his sandwich. "What's the point? They get their little burst of speed, then need to recharge for hours. Nobody talks about that part. The shop's television played quietly in the background, showing a news segment about rising gas prices. Mike's phone buzzed with another comment notification. Oh man. Carlos leaned over to look. This guy's writing a whole essay about environmental responsibility and the future of transportation. Want me to reply with a coal plant meme again? Nah. Let them talk. Every angry comment just boosts the video more. Mike stood up, crushing his sandwich wrapper. Come on, help me film the next one. I saw a Model X in the grocery store parking lot yesterday. The one with those stupid falcon doors. We can talk about how they're basically asking for water leaks. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the shop's open bay doors as they worked on Mrs. Johnson's Mustang. Mike's phone kept buzzing, but his dad had instituted a strict no phones while working on cars rule years ago. Around closing time, as Mike was cleaning tools, Tommy Chen walked in. He was a regular customer before buying his Tesla Model 3 last year, and now he only stopped by to chat. Mike, just saw your video, Tommy said, shaking his head with a laugh. You know, instead of making fun of them, you should try driving one. Might change your mind. Mike rolled his eyes. No thanks. I prefer cars that don't need a software update to work. Says the kid who spends half his life on his phone, Tommy countered. Look, I get it. I was like you. Thought nothing could beat the feel of a good old internal combustion engine. But technology moves forward. These cars are the future. The future of what? Replacing mechanics with computer programmers? Making it impossible for regular people to work on their own cars? Tommy leaned against the workbench. You know what? I bet if you actually spent some time with one of these cars, you'd see things differently. They're not perfect. But neither was the Model T when it replaced horses. Did the Model T need an internet connection to start? Mike shot back. Did it spy on everything you do? Did it cost as much as a house? Actually, Tommy smiled. Adjusted for inflation, the Model T was pretty expensive when it first came out, and people back then probably thought it was pretty complicated compared to a horse and buggy. Mike started wiping down the workbench, a clear signal that he was done with the conversation. Well, you enjoy your fancy golf cart, Tommy. I'll stick with real cars. As Tommy left, Joe emerged from his office. You know, he's got a point. Never hurts to learn about new technology, even if you don't like it. Dad, not you too, Mike groaned. I thought you hated these electric cars. I don't hate them. I just don't understand them yet. There's a difference. Joe put his arm around his son's shoulders. Your grandfather probably wouldn't understand half the computers we use to diagnose cars today, but he'd learn if he was still around. That's what good mechanics do. Mike shrugged off his dad's arm. Yeah, well, good mechanics also know when something's just hype. These Tesla fanboys act like Elon Musk invented the wheel or something. Later that evening, after closing up the shop, Mike sat in his Camaro, filming another video. The setting sun gave the car's red paint a deep, rich glow. You want to know the difference between a real car guy and a Tesla owner? He said to his phone. A real car guy knows every inch of his machine. He can tear it down and build it back up. He doesn't need an app to tell him what's wrong. He can feel it, hear it, fix it with his own hands. He ran his hand along the dashboard. This car right here? It's not just transportation. It's history. It's art. It's freedom. You can't get that from some mass-produced electric appliance that drives itself. The video ended up being his most successful yet. By the time he got home, it had over 2 million views and was still climbing. The comments section was a war zone between electric vehicle advocates and traditional car enthusiasts. At dinner, his mom, Sarah, tried to play peacemaker. Maybe you could make videos about what you love about classic cars instead of attacking other people's choices. Mom, you don't understand. This is what my followers want. Nobody gets this many views talking about carburetors and valve timing. No, but they might respect you more, she said, passing him the potatoes. Your father says you're one of the best young mechanics he's ever trained. Why not share that knowledge instead? Mike picked at his food. I do share knowledge. I just make it entertaining. By making fun of other people's cars? Sarah raised an eyebrow. They're not people's cars, Mom. They're status symbols for rich tech bros who think they're better than everyone else because they drive electric. The conversation was interrupted by Mike's phone buzzing again. He pulled it out under the table, trying to be subtle. Michael Martinez, what's our rule about phones at dinner? Sarah's voice had that warning tone all mothers perfect. Sorry, but Mom, look at these numbers. I might be able to make real money from this. We could expand the shop, maybe even. The shop is doing just fine, Joe cut in. And if we do expand, it'll be because of good work. Not because my son got famous making fun of people on the internet. Mike pushed back his chair. You guys just don't get it. The world's changing, right? Isn't that what you always say, Dad? Well, this is how marketing works now. People want entertainment, not boring technical stuff. He grabbed his phone and headed to his room, calling back. I'm going to work on my next video. In his room, Mike sat at his desk, surrounded by model cars and automotive posters. His laptop showed his video analytics. The engagement rates were through the roof. The controversy was driving more traffic than anything he'd posted before. His phone lit up with a text from Carlos. Bro, you're trending. Even some Tesla fan accounts are sharing your video. Mike grinned as he typed back. They're just giving us more attention. Watch this next one blow up even bigger. He opened TikTok and started scrolling through comments, screenshotting the angriest ones to use in his next video. A notification popped up. Someone had tagged him in a response video. It was a Tesla owner, calmly explaining the benefits of electric vehicles while addressing Mike's criticisms point by point. The comments were full of people tagging Mike, challenging him to respond. Challenge accepted, Mike muttered, already planning his rebuttal. He grabbed his keys. He needed to find another Tesla to film with. The night air was cool as he drove his Camaro through town, the rumble of its V8 engine echoing off buildings. He spotted what he was looking for in the parking lot of an upscale apartment complex, a brand new Tesla Model S. Mike parked nearby and set up his phone. All right, Tesla fanboys, let's talk about build quality again. Notice how this door doesn't quite line up. For $100,000, you'd think they could at least get the panels straight. He was so focused on filming that he didn't notice the car's owner approaching until a voice behind him asked, "Can I help you with something?" Mike spun around to face a man in his 30s wearing a Tesla-branded jacket. Perfect. Just making a video showing people what they're really getting for their money, Mike said, not backing down. The man looked at Mike's Camaro, then back at his Tesla. Nice car you've got there. 69, right? My dad had one when I was growing up. Want to see what this one can do? Mike was caught off guard by the friendly response. Thanks, but I know all about your 0 to 60 times. That's not real performance. It's just electric motors doing what electric motors do. You seem to have a lot of opinions about these cars, the man said. Have you ever driven one? Don't need to drive one to know they're overpriced and overhyped. The man pulled out his keycard. Well, the offer's open if you ever want to challenge your own assumptions. Sometimes the strongest opinions come from the least experience. As the man drove away silently in his Tesla, Mike finished his video. But somehow, it didn't feel as satisfying as usual. Back home, lying in bed, Mike scrolled through his comments. Among the usual arguments between EV fans and critics, one comment caught his eye. For someone who claims to love cars so much, you seem to spend a lot of energy hating them. Real car enthusiasm is about appreciation, not destruction. Mike clicked to reply, fingers hovering over his keyboard. For once, he didn't have a quick comeback. His phone buzzed with a new email notification. Probably another sponsorship offer. He'd been getting a lot of those lately. He opened it without much thought, then sat bolt upright in bed. The email was from Tesla's PR team. His heart pounding, Mike read the first line. We've seen your videos, and we have a proposition for you. Mike read the email 3 times, his hands shaking slightly. The language was professional but direct. Dear Mr. Martinez, we've been following your content about Tesla vehicles with interest. While we appreciate your passion for automobiles, we believe there might be some misconceptions we could address. We'd like to invite you to our Tesla Delivery Center for a full day of unrestricted test drives with our entire vehicle lineup. No scripts, no restrictions on filming, and complete freedom to share your honest opinions with your followers. Are you willing to put your convictions to the test? Best regards, Tesla Public Relations Team. Mike's thumb hovered over the delete button. This had to be fake, right? But the email address looked legitimate, and the signature block included direct contact information. His phone buzzed. Carlos calling. "Dude, you're not going to believe what just happened," Mike started. "Bro, your Tesla videos are everywhere," Carlos interrupted. "Even that car review channel you love just shared it. You're blowing up." "Yeah, but listen. My cousin in Mexico just sent me your video. You're international now." "Carlos, Tesla just emailed me." There was a moment of silence on the line. "What? No way. What did they say? Are they suing you?" Mike read the email aloud. "Holy shit," Carlos whispered. "You have to do it." "Are you crazy? It's obviously a trap. They just want to embarrass me." "Or maybe they're confident in their products," Carlos said. "Think about it. If you go and their cars actually suck, you'll have proof. Your videos will be even bigger." Mike flopped back on his bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above him. "I don't know, man." "What if?" "What if what? You're scared they might be good?" "I'm not scared," Mike sat up quickly. "I just don't want to give them free publicity." Carlos laughed. "Bro, you've been giving them publicity for months. Negative publicity, but still publicity. Maybe that's why they're not mad. You're probably selling cars for them without even knowing it." "That's not funny." Mike got up and started pacing his room. The posters of classic cars on his walls seemed to watch him. "I should talk to my dad first." "Your dad who thinks you spend too much time making videos instead of working on real cars?" "That dad?" Mike stopped pacing. Carlos had a point. His dad would probably tell him to focus on the shop and forget about social media fame. "Look," Carlos continued, "this is your chance to prove everything you've been saying. Take their cars on camera. Show everyone the truth. What's the worst that could happen?" Mike glanced at his reflection in the window, a 17-year-old kid who'd somehow become the voice of anti-Tesla sentiment for millions of viewers. What if he was wrong? What if? He shook his head. He knew cars. He'd grown up with them, worked on them since he could hold a wrench. These electric vehicles were a fad, a tech industry gimmick. He was sure of it. Almost sure. "If I do this," Mike said slowly, "you're coming with me. I need someone to help film." "Are you kidding? Wild horses couldn't keep me away. This is going to be epic." After hanging up, Mike sat at his desk and opened his laptop. He started researching everything he could find about Tesla test drives, looking for catches or tricks they might use. His YouTube history quickly filled with Tesla review videos, not the critical ones he usually watched, but actual owners talking about their experiences. Around 2 a.m., his mom knocked softly on his door. "Michael, you still up?" "Just finishing something," he called back, quickly switching tabs. Sarah opened the door, wearing her old teaching robe. "I heard you pacing. What's keeping you up?" Mike hesitated. His mom had always been the diplomatic one in the family, trying to see all sides of an argument. "Maybe." "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Hypothetically?" Sarah sat on the edge of his bed, giving him that patient look she'd perfected over years of teaching high school English. "Of course. What if? What if someone you've been criticizing suddenly wants to prove you wrong? Like, they're so confident you're wrong that they're willing to let you test their claims yourself. Would you do it?" "Is this about the email from Tesla?" Mike's jaw dropped. "How did you?" "Your father might not understand social media, but I follow your accounts." She smiled at his shocked expression. "Know your enemy, right? That's what you're always saying about Tesla. So, what do you think I should do?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You know what I teach my students about writing essays? The strongest arguments come from understanding both sides. Right now, you're writing an essay about Tesla, without ever having read the source material. But Mom, I know about cars. I've worked on them my whole life." "And how many electric cars have you worked on?" Mike slumped in his chair. "That's different. They don't let independent shops work on their cars. Maybe that's something you could ask them about when you visit." Sarah stood up and kissed the top of his head. "Just remember, having strong opinions is fine, but being willing to test those opinions? That takes real courage." After his mom left, Mike opened his email and started typing a reply. He deleted and rewrote it 5 times before settling on. "I accept your invitation, but I have conditions. I live stream everything. No cuts, no edits. I can bring my own camera person. I can ask any questions I want about your cars, your company, and your practices. You provide detailed information about your repair policies and why independent shops can't work on your vehicles. If you agree to these terms, I'm in. Mike Martinez. His finger hovered over the send button. Once he did this, there was no going back. His reputation, his credibility with his followers, everything would be on the line. He thought about what his mom said about courage, about his dad's words regarding adaptation, about Tommy's offer to try understanding instead of judging. Mike clicked send. Then he opened TikTok and started recording. Hey everyone. So something crazy just happened. He held up his phone, showing the email. Tesla wants to prove me wrong. And you know what? I'm going to let them try. Get ready for the most honest Tesla review you've ever seen. As he edited the video, a new email notification popped up. Tesla had already replied. Dear Mr. Martinez, we accept all your conditions. How does next Tuesday work for you? Let's make history together. Best regards, Tesla PR team. Mike released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. It was really happening. He was about to put everything he believed about cars to the test. He picked up his phone to text Carlos, then stopped. First, he needed to tell his dad. This wasn't just about him anymore. This could affect their whole shop's reputation. Tomorrow would be interesting. The morning sun hadn't even cleared the horizon when Mike pulled into the shop's parking lot. His dad was already there, which wasn't surprising. Joe Martinez hadn't been late to open the shop in 20 years. You're early, Joe said, looking up from the coffee maker. Either you're excited about Mrs. Peterson's brake job, or there's something you need to tell me. Mike took a deep breath. Dad, I need to take Tuesday off. Tuesday? Joe poured 2 cups of coffee, sliding one across the counter. That's fine, but what's so important it can't wait for the weekend? Mike pulled out his phone and showed his father the email exchange with Tesla. Joe read it slowly, his expression unreadable behind his reading glasses. So, Joe finally said, You're going to their house now? It's not like that, Dad. This is my chance to prove everything I've been saying. Real evidence, not just talking about panel gaps in parking lots. Joe took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. And if you're wrong? The question hung in the air between them. Mike hadn't expected that response. I'm not wrong, these cars. These cars, Joe interrupted, are changing the industry whether we like it or not. The question is, are you ready to be honest about what you find? Really honest? Mike felt his face getting hot. Of course I'll be honest. I always. No, Joe cut in again. You're always entertaining. There's a difference. Entertainment got you 2 million followers. But honesty? That might cost you some of them. Before Mike could respond, Carlos burst through the door, camera gear hanging from both shoulders. Morning, Mr. M. Mike, I got everything we need. 3 camera angles, wireless mics, even a stabilizer for walking shots. He dumped the equipment on the counter. This is going to be epic. Joe looked at the pile of gear, then back at his son. Just remember what I said. And Mike, be professional. You're representing more than just yourself now. As his dad walked into the garage, Carlos started unpacking cameras. So, what's the game plan? We go in, expose their flaws, blow up even bigger on social? Mike stared into his coffee. Yeah, something like that. The rest of the week flew by in a blur of preparation. Mike spent every free moment researching Tesla's vehicles, trying to anticipate what they might show him. His TikTok announcement about the upcoming visit had already reached 5 million views, with fans and critics alike eager to see what would happen. Tuesday morning arrived with a mix of clouds and sun. Mike stood in front of his closet, debating what to wear. The internal combustion forever shirt? Carlos suggested, already setting up his first camera. Mike pulled out the shirt, looking at the bold letters. It felt childish now somehow. He reached instead for a plain black t-shirt. Seriously? Carlos lowered his camera. That's like showing up to a boxing match in a tuxedo. Dad said to be professional, Mike muttered, but he couldn't ignore the butterflies in his stomach. This wasn't just another video. This was different. The drive to the Tesla delivery center felt longer than it should have. Mike's Camaro rumbled through morning traffic, Carlos live streaming from the passenger seat. Coming up on 50,000 viewers already, Carlos reported. Comments are going crazy. Half of them think you're walking into a trap. What does the other half think? Carlos scrolled through his phone. They think you're going to choke when you feel the acceleration. Mike gripped the steering wheel tighter. They clearly don't know what a built-up Camaro can do. The Tesla building appeared ahead. All white walls and glass, looking more like an Apple store than a car dealership. Mike pulled into the parking lot, deliberately parking between two Model 3s. Look at that panel gap, he said to the camera, falling into his usual routine. You'd think for 40 grand they could at least. Mr. Martinez? Mike turned to find a woman in a Tesla polo shirt standing nearby, tablet in hand. Her name tag read Lisa Chen. I'm Lisa, your product specialist for today. She smiled, seemingly unfazed by the cameras. I see you've already started your analysis. Would you like to continue it inside one of our actual vehicles? Mike felt his prepared comments dying in his throat. This wasn't some fanboy he could mock. This was a professional who'd probably heard every criticism before. Yeah, sure, he managed. Just documenting everything for my followers. Of course, we encourage thorough documentation. In fact, she held up her tablet, showing Mike's channel. I've watched all your videos about us. Very passionate perspectives. Carlos snickered behind his camera. Lisa led them into the building, where 3 Tesla vehicles waited in the showroom. We have a full day planned. Each vehicle has been fully charged, and you'll have unlimited access to our test track. We can start with whichever model you'd like. Mike walked around a Model S Plaid, trying to find flaws to point out. The car was immaculate. The build quality seems better than the ones I've seen in parking lots, he admitted grudgingly. That's because these are new. A voice called from across the showroom. A man in a Tesla jacket approached, hand extended. Tom Anderson, head of regional sales. Welcome to Tesla, Mike. We're excited to have you here. Mike shook his hand, suddenly very aware of his youth. Thanks for, not suing me or something. Tom laughed. Sue you? Your videos have done more to get people talking about our cars than half our marketing budget. Besides, we believe in our product. The best way to handle criticism is to let people experience the truth for themselves. Carlos panned his camera between them, capturing the tension. So, Tom continued, where would you like to start? Panel gaps? Build quality? Or should we jump straight to performance? Mike glanced at the Model S Plaid. He'd researched its specs extensively, but seeing it in person was different. Actually, he said, remembering his dad's words about honesty, I'd like to understand something first. Why can't independent shops work on these cars? My dad's garage has been fixing cars for 30 years, but with Teslas. Tom nodded. Fair question, Lisa. Why don't you take Mike through our diagnostic systems while I get the track ready? We can address the right to repair concerns before moving on to the driving experience. Lisa pulled up a technical diagram on a large screen. The relationship between independent repair shops and electric vehicles is actually more complex than most people realize. The morning proceeded with detailed discussions about Tesla's technology, repair procedures, and the company's plans for working with independent shops. Mike found himself asking genuine questions, forgetting sometimes that he was supposed to be looking for flaws. Around noon, Tom returned. Track's ready. Lisa tells me you've had quite the technical discussion. Ready to experience what all this technology feels like in motion? Mike turned to Carlos, who gave him a thumbs up. The live stream had grown to over 100,000 viewers. Yeah, Mike said, trying to sound confident. Let's see what these computers on wheels can really do. As Lisa handed him the key card for the Model S Plaid, his hand trembled slightly. Everything he'd been saying online, every criticism, every joke, it was all about to be put to the test. The acceleration mode is already enabled, Lisa explained. Just remember, press the brake pedal firmly then. I know how it works, Mike interrupted, falling back on bravado. I've watched plenty of videos. Lisa smiled patiently. Videos don't quite capture the experience. Would you like me to ride along? Mike shook his head. I'd rather do this myself, for authenticity. He settled into the driver's seat, adjusting it as Carlos set up a camera on the dashboard. The interior was nice. Really nice. Not that he'd admit that on stream yet. All right, Tesla fanboys, he said to the camera, forcing his signature smirk. Let's see what all the hype is about. The yoke steering wheel felt strange in his hands. The massive center screen displayed more information than his Camaro's entire dashboard. Mike took a deep breath, trying to ignore the growing knot in his stomach. Just another car, he muttered to himself. Just another test drive. But as he pressed the brake pedal and prepared to experience Tesla's legendary acceleration, a small voice in the back of his mind whispered, "What if you've been wrong all along?" "Okay, chat," Carlos said from the passenger seat, holding up his phone. "Taking bets? Is Mike about to eat his words? Or is this Tesla all hype? Comments are going crazy." Mike gripped the yoke tighter, trying to ignore the live stream numbers climbing past 150,000. The test track stretched before him, a long, straight section perfect for testing acceleration. "Remember," Lisa's voice came through his open window, "the acceleration can be intense. Maybe try it in chill mode first to get a feel." "I drive a 600 horsepower Camaro." Mike cut her off, his pride taking over. "I think I can handle it." Tom leaned against a barrier, arms crossed, a knowing smile on his face. "Your call, kid. Just remember, brake pedal firm, accelerator quick." Mike turned to Carlos's camera. "All right, everyone, let's expose this party trick for what it is. Sure, it might be quick off the line, but that's not real." His words cut off mid-sentence as his foot hit the accelerator. The world became a blur. His head slammed back against the headrest. His stomach felt like it was trying to exit through his spine. The acceleration was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Not in his Camaro. Not in any car he'd ever driven. Holy shit. The expletive died in his throat as the car kept pulling, kept accelerating well past the point where any normal car would have started to lose steam. Carlos was laughing, the camera shaking in his hands. "Your face. Bro, your face." Mike lifted off the accelerator, his hands trembling slightly on the yoke. He glanced at the speedometer and quickly looked away, not wanting his viewers to see just how fast they'd gone. That's not. He struggled to find words that wouldn't betray his shock. "Want to try it again?" Lisa called out. "This time with the countdown timer?" Mike nodded, not trusting his voice. He turned the car around, trying to process what he'd just experienced. Everything he thought he knew about performance, about what cars could do, it all needed recalibration. "Chat's going insane," Carlos reported, scrolling through comments. "Look at his face. Tesla 1, Mike 0. He's shook." "I'm not shook," Mike protested weakly. "It's just different." "Different good or different bad?" Tom asked, approaching the driver's window. Mike stared straight ahead. "Different. Impressive," he admitted. "But straight-line speed isn't everything. Any RC car can. Take it through the handling course," Tom suggested. "Lisa will guide you through the slalom. Let's see how a computer on wheels handles the curves." For the next hour, Mike put the Model S through its paces. Each test revealed something new: the instant response of the electric motors, the low center of gravity, the precise control. His commentary to the livestream became less antagonistic, more focused on genuine analysis. "The steering is actually really good," he found himself saying. "There's no artificial feel like I expected, and the regenerative braking takes some getting used to, but once you understand it." "Are you feeling okay?" Carlos interrupted. "You're starting to sound like one of them." Mike caught himself. "I mean, it's still not a real driver's car. Sure, it's fast, but where's the engagement? Where's the—" He trailed off, realizing he was engaged, very engaged. The car demanded a different kind of focus, a new way of thinking about driving, but it wasn't less involving, just different. Lisa peered at his window again. "Ready to try the Model 3 Performance? It's a bit lighter, might feel more familiar to someone used to track driving." Mike looked at the comments streaming past on Carlos's phone. His followers were divided. Some accusing him of selling out, others praising his honest reactions, many just enjoying the show. "Before we switch cars," Mike said, "can we try the Plaid one more time? I want to verify something." Tom's knowing smile returned. "Of course, take all the time you need. Sometimes the truth takes a while to sink in." As Mike lined up for another acceleration run, he thought about his dad's words about honesty, about his mom's comment regarding testing assumptions, about all the videos he'd made, so confident in his opinions. "Hey, Chad," he said to the camera, his voice quieter than usual. I think I might have been wrong about some things, not everything, but this car is pretty incredible." The comments exploded, but Mike wasn't reading them anymore. He was too busy learning, experiencing, understanding. The day was still young, and he had a lot more to discover. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a lifetime of certainties began to crack. Mike's hands were still trembling as he pulled into the Tesla building's service bay. The Model S Plaid had shaken more than just his body. It had rattled his entire worldview. "Let's take a break," Lisa suggested, noting his expression. "The cafeteria has great coffee." "What about the stream?" Carlos asked, checking his equipment. "We're at 200,000 viewers now." Mike ran his hands through his hair. "They can wait. I need a minute to think." The Tesla cafeteria was nothing like the greasy spoon where Mike and his dad grabbed lunch between jobs. Modern, clean, with healthy options and, true to Lisa's word, excellent coffee. "So," Tom said, sliding into the seat across from Mike, "still think they're just glorified golf carts?" Mike stared into his coffee cup. "The acceleration is impressive, I'll give you that. But that's just physics, right? Electric motors have instant torque. That doesn't make it a better car overall." "Fair point," Tom nodded. "Which is why we're just getting started. But first I'm curious. What makes a real car in your opinion?" Carlos kept the camera rolling as Mike thought about it. "Connection?" Mike finally said. "When I drive my Camaro, I feel everything. The engine's vibrations, the transmission shifts, the way it talks to me through the steering wheel. That's what makes it real." "And you didn't feel connected to the Model S?" "It's different," Mike admitted. "It's like comparing analog to digital. Sure, digital might be more precise, but analog has soul." Tom leaned back, considering. "You know, I used to race motorcycles. When they first introduced traction control and ABS, people said the same thing, that it would remove the soul of riding. But you know what? It just moved the limits higher. Instead of fighting the bike, you could focus on being a better rider." Mike thought about how the Model S had carved through the handling course, responding to his inputs with unprecedented precision. "Maybe," he conceded. "But what about the maintenance? The repairs? You can't tell me locking out independent shops is good for car culture." "Actually," Lisa interjected, pulling up something on her tablet, "we should show you our new certified repair program. We're starting to work with independent shops, providing training and diagnostic tools." Mike sat up straighter. "Really? My dad's shop could potentially?" "If he's interested, yes. The automotive world is changing, Mike. We want to bring everyone along, not leave them behind." Carlos lowered his camera. Mike? The comments are getting pretty heated. Some of your followers think you're selling out." Mike grabbed the phone, scrolling through the live chat. The opinions were sharply divided. "He's been bought. Finally speaking the truth. Traitor to real cars. Love seeing him learn." "You know what?" Mike looked up from the phone. "Let them talk. This isn't about them anymore. Show me everything. The repair program, the diagnostic systems, all of it. My followers deserve the whole truth, not just what they want to hear." The next hour was spent in Tesla's service center. Mike watched technicians work, asked detailed questions about repair procedures, and even got to see their diagnostic systems in action. "This is actually pretty impressive," he said, watching a technician update a Model 3 software. "It's different from traditional car repair, but it's not necessarily worse, just evolved." "Speaking of evolution," Tom cut in, "ready to experience something that might change your mind about autonomous driving?" Mike's old skepticism flared up. "No computer can drive better than a human, that's just facts." "Test that theory?" Lisa challenged, holding up another keycard. They moved to a special test course designed to demonstrate Tesla's autonomous features. Lisa explained the system while Carlos set up new camera angles. "The car uses 8 external cameras, 12 ultrasonic sensors, and forward-facing radar," she detailed. "It processes this data faster than any human could." "Yeah, until it mistakes a billboard for a stop sign," Mike scoffed, falling back on his old talking points. "How about we put it to the test?" Tom suggested. "We've set up some obstacles on the track. You try to avoid them manually first, then let the car do it." Mike agreed, confident in his driving abilities. The course was challenging. Random obstacles would pop up, requiring quick reactions to avoid them. His first run was good, but not perfect. He clipped one obstacle and had to brake hard to avoid another. Not bad, Tom acknowledged. Now, let's see how the computer does. Mike activated the autonomous features, his hand hovering nervously over the wheel. As they approached the first obstacle, the car smoothly adjusted its path, faster than Mike could have reacted. Okay, that was kind of impressive, he admitted. But what about? Before he could finish, another obstacle appeared. The car had already calculated its avoidance path and executed it flawlessly. How did it? Mike trailed off, watching the car navigate challenges that would have tested even the best human drivers. The system sees in all directions simultaneously, Lisa explained. It never gets distracted, never gets tired, and can predict trajectories in milliseconds. Mike sat back, processing what he'd just experienced. This isn't just about convenience, is it? This could actually save lives. Now you're getting it, Tom smiled. But there's more. Let's talk about the environmental impact data you've been skeptical about. They moved to a conference room, where Lisa pulled up detailed statistics about emissions, energy consumption, and environmental impact throughout the entire life cycle of both electric and gas vehicles. I know what you're going to say, Mike interrupted. The electricity still comes from coal plants, right? I've used that argument in like 10 videos. Some of it does, Lisa acknowledged. But look at these numbers. She showed him graphs comparing total lifetime emissions. Even in areas powered completely by coal, which are becoming rarer, the total environmental impact is still lower over the car's lifetime. Mike studied the data, his brow furrowed. But what about the battery production? The mining? Valid concerns, Tom nodded. Which is why we should show you our recycling program and the improvements in battery technology. As the afternoon progressed, Mike found himself asking more questions and making fewer dismissive comments. His livestream audience noticed the change. Guys, he finally addressed his viewers directly. I know some of you are angry. You think I'm betraying the car community or something. But being a real car enthusiast means being honest about what you learn. And today I learned I was wrong about a lot of things. Carlos zoomed in on Mike's face as he continued. These cars aren't perfect. They're expensive, they're different, and yeah, maybe they don't rumble like a V8. But they're not fake cars. They're not jokes. They're the next step in automotive evolution. And maybe that's not a bad thing. The comment section exploded again, but Mike wasn't done. To all the Tesla owners I've made fun of, I owe you an apology. I judged without understanding. I mocked what I feared. And that's not what a real car enthusiast does. Tom placed a hand on Mike's shoulder. That took guts, kid. Speaking of guts, ready to try the Model X Plaid? It does things an SUV shouldn't be able to do. Mike managed a genuine smile. Bring it on. But this time, I'm leaving my prejudices in the parking lot. As they walked back to the test track, Mike's phone buzzed. A text from his dad. How's it going? Still hate them? Mike typed back. No, Dad. I don't hate them anymore. But we need to talk about getting certified for electric vehicle repair. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the test track as Mike approached the Model X Plaid. His earlier bravado had been replaced by something different, genuine curiosity. This thing really weighs over 5,000 pounds? Mike circled the SUV, professional detailer's eye noting the finish quality. How does it handle all that weight in corners? Why don't you find out? Lisa tossed him the keycard. The handling course is still set up. Carlos adjusted his camera setup. Viewers want to see the Falcon doors in action first. They're calling them gimmicks in the comments. Everything innovative was called a gimmick once, Tom remarked. Automatic transmissions, power steering, disc brakes, all gimmicks that purists hated. Mike pressed the door button, watching as the Falcon Wing doors rose smoothly. Okay, that's pretty cool, he admitted, then quickly added. But cool doesn't mean practical. Try opening them in a tight parking space, Lisa suggested. The sensors adjust the door's path to avoid obstacles. They spent 20 minutes testing the doors in various scenarios, tight spaces, different heights, even with obstacles above. Mike found himself genuinely impressed by the engineering. This isn't just for show, is it? He ran his hand along the door's mechanism. This actually solves real problems with loading kids and cargo in tight spaces. Starting to see why we do things differently? Tom smiled. Mike settled into the driver's seat, taking in the massive display and minimalist interior. It's still weird having no gauges behind the wheel. Weird bad or weird different? Lisa asked. Just different. Mike adjusted the seat, noting how the settings automatically saved to his profile. Like everything else today, it's all so different from what I'm used to. Carlos checked the stream numbers. Almost 300,000 viewers now. They want to see what this family hauler can do. Mike navigated to the start of the handling course, still adapting to the SUV's regenerative braking. All right, chat, let's see if an electric SUV can actually handle. His words cut off as he launched into the first turn. The Model X defied physics, carrying speed through corners that should have been impossible for a vehicle its size. This is insane, he muttered, pushing harder through each turn. The center of gravity, the instant power delivery, the way it just grips. After several laps, he pulled back into the service area, shaking his head in disbelief. Want to see something really cool? Lisa asked. Put it in Sentry mode and walk away. Mike watched in fascination as the SUV's exterior cameras activated, creating a protective bubble of surveillance. His phone showed the live camera feed. This would have saved my Camaro's paint last year, he admitted, remembering the mysterious door ding that still annoyed him. And it's just included? Standard feature, Tom confirmed, along with regular software updates that add new features and improvements. That's another thing. Mike turned to address his livestream audience directly. I used to mock the whole software update thing, called it proof these weren't real cars. But think about it. What if our classic cars could get better over time? What if that carburetor could tune itself? Or that transmission could learn your driving style? Carlos read out some comments. He's definitely been paid off. Never thought I'd see Mike defend Tesla. Finally speaking facts. Mike took a deep breath. Look, I get it. Change is scary. I've built my whole identity around traditional cars. But being a real car enthusiast means loving innovation, loving progress. These cars, they're not replacing our classics. They're writing the next chapter in automotive history. Tom checked his watch. Speaking of history, ready to make some? There's one more test we'd like to try. What's left? Mike asked. We've done acceleration, handling, technology. Follow me. Lisa led them to a closed section of the track. Let's talk about safety features. Mike's stomach tightened. What kind of safety features? The kind that might challenge your last big criticism, Tom said, setting up some obstacles on the track. Remember your video about autopilot being dangerous? The afternoon light was fading as Mike sat in the Tesla conference room, reviewing footage from the day's tests. His phone hadn't stopped buzzing with notifications. His latest TikTok about the safety features had already reached 2 million views. Your followers are going crazy, Carlos said, scrolling through comments. Some are calling you a traitor, but most, they're actually listening. You're changing minds out there. Mike rubbed his tired eyes. I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm just being honest about changing my own. Lisa entered with fresh coffee. Ready for one more surprise? What else could there possibly be? Mike laughed. We've tested everything these cars can do. Not quite everything. Tom appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. Someone would like to talk to you about your experiences today. The conference room's large screen flickered to life, and Mike's heart nearly stopped. There, smiling slightly, was Elon Musk himself. So, Elon began, you're the kid who's been roasting my cars on TikTok. Mike felt his face flush red. Mr. Musk, I can explain. No need. Elon waved off the apology. Criticism drives innovation, but I'm more interested in hearing your honest thoughts now that you've actually experienced our vehicles. Carlos quickly adjusted his camera to capture both the screen and Mike's reaction. Mike paused, choosing his words carefully. I was wrong. Not about everything. There are still things that could be improved. But I was wrong about the big stuff. These aren't just tech gadgets pretending to be cars. They're the future. The future is a pretty big word. Elon leaned forward. What made you change your mind? Mike thought about everything he'd experienced. It wasn't just one thing. The performance, sure, that flat acceleration is insane, but it's more than that. The safety features, the constant improvements through updates, The way everything is thought through. It's like you're not just trying to replace cars, you're trying to reimagine them. That's exactly what we're doing, Elon nodded. But tell me about your father's shop. I heard you're interested in our independent repair program? You know about that? I try to stay informed. Look, the transition to electric vehicles isn't just about the cars. It's about bringing the whole automotive community along. Mechanics, enthusiasts, racers, we need all of you. Tom handed Mike a folder. These are the details of our certified repair program. We're expanding it significantly next year. Mike opened the folder, scanning the documents. This could work. Dad's always said we need to evolve or die. Maybe this is how we evolve. Speaking of evolution, Elon continued, I have a proposition for you. The room fell silent. Even Carlos lowered his camera. Your videos reach millions of young car enthusiasts, Elon said. People trust your opinion because you're authentic, even when you were criticizing us. How would you like to document your father's shop's transition to EV repair? Show other traditional mechanics that they can be part of this future. Mike's jaw dropped. You want me to make videos about learning to work on Teslas? Not just Teslas, all EVs. The future isn't about one company, it's about transforming transportation. And who better to guide other gearheads through that transformation than someone who just went through it himself? Mike looked at Tom and Lisa, then at Carlos, who gave him an enthusiastic thumbs up. But what about my followers who love traditional cars? Mike asked. Who says you have to choose? Elon smiled. The Camaro in your videos, keep working on it, keep loving it. This isn't about replacing the past, it's about embracing the future while respecting our roots. Mike thought about his dad's words about adaptation, about all the times the automotive industry had evolved, and how the best mechanics had evolved with it. Okay, he said finally, I'm in, but I do it my way. Honest opinions, no sugarcoating. I wouldn't have it any other way, Elon replied. Send me your first training video when you're ready. And Mike? Thanks for being willing to change your mind. That's rarer than you might think. After the call ended, Mike sat in silence for a moment, processing everything. So, Carlos broke the quiet. What are you going to tell your followers? Mike picked up his phone and started recording. Hey everyone, you've watched me learn a lot today. You've seen me admit I was wrong about these cars. But here's the thing. Being wrong isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of a better one. He walked out to the showroom, camera following. See this Model S? A week ago, I called it a computer pretending to be a car. Now I know better. It's not pretending to be anything. It's the next step in a journey that started with the Model T. And just like mechanics back then had to learn new skills, we need to evolve too. Tom and Lisa watched from the doorway as Mike continued. To all the traditional car guys out there, our passion isn't under attack. Nobody's taking away our classics, our project cars, our weekend warriors. But we can love those cars and still embrace what's coming. Because at the end of the day, we're not just car guys, we're innovators, we're adapters. We're the people who push technology forward. He turned to face the Tesla logos on the wall. So here's my promise to you. I'm going to document everything as my dad's shop learns to work on these cars. Every success, every failure, every lesson learned. And I invite you to learn with us. Because the future of cars isn't coming, it's already here, and it's pretty damn exciting. Carlos lowered his camera. That's going to break the internet. Maybe, Mike smiled. But more importantly, it might build some bridges. Later that evening, Mike pulled his Camaro into his dad's shop. Joe was still there, working late as usual. So, his dad looked up from under the hood of a customer's car. How bad was it? Mike leaned against his Camaro's fender. Dad, we need to talk about the future of Martinez Auto Repair. Joe wiped his hands on a shop rag. That bad, huh? No. Mike pulled out the Tesla certification program folder. That good. Remember how you always say the best mechanics are the ones who never stop learning? His dad took the folder, scanning its contents. Electric vehicles? You really think we should? I think we have to. But not just for business reasons. Mike ran his hand along his Camaro's hood. Today I learned something important. Being a real car guy isn't about holding on to the past. It's about helping build the future while remembering where we came from. Joe looked at his son with pride. When did you get so wise? About 8 hours ago, Mike laughed. So, what do you say? Ready to learn some new tricks? Joe opened the folder again, this time reading more carefully. Well, son, I always did say we need to evolve or die. And Martinez Auto Repair isn't dying on my watch. Mike pulled out his phone one last time that day, starting a new video. Hey everyone, remember that kid who used to mock electric cars? Well, let me introduce you to the new face of Martinez Auto Repair, where the past and future of automotive technology come together. This is going to be one hell of a ride. That night, after posting his final video of the day, Mike sat in his room surrounded by his car posters. His phone kept buzzing with notifications, but for once, he wasn't checking them. Instead, he was writing in his notebook. Something he hadn't done since he started making videos. Things I learned today. Being wrong isn't failure. It's an opportunity to grow. Real strength is admitting when you need to change. The future doesn't have to erase the past. Dad was right. Don't tell him I said that. A knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. His mom entered, carrying 2 cups of hot chocolate, their traditional serious conversation drink since he was little. Your latest video just passed 3 million views, she said, handing him a cup. The one where you talk about bridging the gap between old and new. Mike took a sip. Are people still calling me a sellout? Some are, but most. She pulled out her phone, reading comments. This kid just grew up in front of our eyes. Finally, someone talking sense about the future of cars. Showed my dad this video, now he's willing to look at an EV. I never wanted to be an influencer, you know, Mike said quietly. I just loved cars. And that hasn't changed. His mom sat beside him. If anything, now you love them more completely. Both what they were and what they're becoming. Another knock, his dad this time, holding the Tesla certification paperwork. I made some calls, Joe said, entering the room. Tommy's cousin works at that certified Tesla shop in Austin. Says they'll help us get started with the program. If you're sure about this. Mike stood up. I'm sure, Dad, but only if you are. Joe looked around his son's room, at the mix of classic car posters and the new Tesla brochures on his desk. You know what your grandfather told me when I wanted to start using computer diagnostics in the shop? He said, the day you stop learning is the day you stop being a mechanic. Looks like we've got some learning to do. Mike hugged his father, something he hadn't done in a while. We'll do it together. Old school and new school. Speaking of school, his mom interjected, you still have that physics test tomorrow. Mom, I just had the biggest day of my life. And tomorrow, life goes on, she smiled. Though I bet you understand electric motors better now. Later, alone again, Mike recorded one final private video, not for his followers, but for himself. To future Mike, remember today. Remember how it felt to have your whole worldview challenged and come out stronger. Remember that change isn't betrayal, and progress isn't the enemy. Most importantly, remember that the best mechanics, the best creators, the best people, they never stop learning, never stop growing, never stop dreaming about what comes next. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most important thing I learned from the day I stopped laughing at Tesla. He saved the video and walked to his window. His Camaro sat in the driveway, its classic lines silhouetted in the moonlight. Next to it, his dad had parked his truck, and there was an empty space. A space that someday soon might hold something entirely different. Mike smiled. The future was going to be interesting.